Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our series this afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Andy Glavac. He is from Welland, Ontario, Canada, which is near Niagara Falls. He is a financial planner with impressive designations in the financial field. But this afternoon, he's not giving us financial advice. He's with us to talk about his trip to Havana, Cuba, and to show us a short video of people of Havana. He will show us how presentations are done with a manual slideshow and discuss his process for event photography. So you might ask yourself, what does a financial planner know about photographing events? Well, plenty. He's an accomplished photographer. He has been a photographer since the days of film. He loves sports photography and photographs University of Buffalo basketball events. He has credentials for many sporting events and will be accredited for the Canada Games this summer. He's a member of the Niagara Frontier Regional Camera Club, which is made up of camera and photography clubs from Canada and the US. And he has been a speaker to many camera clubs. He loves street and travel photography and believes the people of Havana are amazing. He's made many friends there, and I'm sure he'll make many friends here as well. I think we're in for a real treat today. Welcome to Green Valley and the Camera Club, Andy.
Thank you, Danny, for the great introduction. And I've officially paid my money now, so I am a member. I look forward to the outings, and it looks like you've got a very, very active club. I've seen lots of the YouTube presentations, and I got a lot out of every one of them, actually. So hopefully this is one that is memorable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show a video that I did. I did a people, places, things in Havana, but this is my favorite, is just a video of the people there, which have just embraced my heart, and I still keep in touch with several people in Havana. So I will start with that. Whoops, I got to share my screen first. Okay, so get out of here. Oh, that's not part of mine. Stop sharing. Hang on one second. So that was, I always get pretty emotional when I see that video. The last guy in that video was a good friend, Carlos. Carlos is, he's actually a teacher by trade, but he made more money driving that little Coco taxi. He took us everywhere. I was there with another friend of mine. We lived right in Havana with a family. And actually we were right next door to the National Ballet School. I tried to get in there, even tried to bribe my way in there a couple times, and it was highly top secret there. They were getting ready to go on the road on a world tour, and they wouldn't let us go in there even to take a peek. But the people of Havana, I was there right after the hurricane, their last hurricane they had, and it was just devastating. But the people, that's why I named that We Have Life, because just about every one of those people in that video, I actually got to speak to, either in very broken Spanish or in two-way broken English. So I made a real connection with people down there. There was two guys that I took a picture of right through a car window. Those were two photographers that I connected with. One of them's actually, the younger one was a professor at the university in Havana. So his father's a very famous photographer, and he's very quickly becoming a very famous photographer in Cuba. Now, JP was talking to me about trying to get to Cuba. When Obama was president, he was there, and he really tried to get ties with Cuba open again. And, Madonna was there, did a big concert. Jay-Z was there. J-Lo was there. Lots of famous people were there. And of course, all the Cubans were talking about, the Americans coming into Cuba, and they really need it, because Cuba now is devastated. It's god awful. I mean, I've got friends of mine that have been to the resorts, and they're not too bad, but everywhere else in Cuba it's pretty poor. They're actually don't have very much food, and they're really getting choked out, and it's a big problem. We thought when Fidel Castro's brother got out that the new president was going to be a little bit more, I'd say, less dictator and more people, but he's not. So Cuba's in a lot of trouble, but it's a great place. When I was there, I met a lot of Americans there. Actually, it's not that difficult to get there. You can go there on a religious exchange. I have a number of photographers that I know do trips to Cuba, and you can get there. Right now I wouldn't recommend going to Cuba, just because you can't get a lot of things down there that you'd want. But they definitely have a place in my heart for sure. So that's a little taste of what I like to do for sure on the street. I love to document people. So street photography is something I do on a regular basis. Everywhere I go, I have probably 5 or 6 street photography presentations. So we're here to talk about event photography, and I've been on the last 2 YouTubes for the club, and I found them very informative, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on what I would recommend on event photography. Quite often when I do these presentations, people always ask, people seem to be a little intimidated to get the camera out and face people. I find my camera is my ticket to socializing. As soon as people see, especially what they call a pro camera, right? Everybody's running around with an iPhone now, but you get what's called a pro camera, and everybody in the club probably has a pro camera. They're just fascinated by it. Oh, that's a nice camera. And you just I usually just point my camera up and picture yes or no. I only had 1 person in Cuba not want me to take their picture. That was actually a chef that was sort of goofing off. He was supposed to be working, and he didn't want me to take his picture. But I've never had any real, controversy over approaching people. I guess you just have to smile and be nice. I think it helps to wear something kind of funky that gets you a little bit different. But event photography, I was very fortunate. In a lot of things that I do, I ask for credentials way ahead of time. So this is a festival I did. This is an Irish festival in Fergus, Ontario. It's one of the largest Scottish inhabitants in Canada. Is in this little town called Fergus, and they have this Highlands Games Festival. They haven't had it for 2 years, but it's coming back this year. I had press credentials for this. I wandered around all over the place. I was very hands-on. I had full access to everything. This is a 3-day event. And so a little bit about my equipment. So I shoot Fuji. I was a Nikon guy for a long time. In the film days, I was a Olympus guy. I was a Nikon guy. I traveled a fair bit, and my Nikon equipment was just really, really heavy. So I switched to Fuji a number of years ago, and I'm glad I did. I have an X-T3 and an X-T4. For event photography, two of my favorite lenses, I use a 16-80 quite a bit because it's not an intimidating. If you show up with a big bazooka lens, you know, like I do for sports photography and birding and things, you're just a little bit intimidating. So that 16-80 is really good. And I also use an 18-35, 135. And if I have to, I'll go to a 50-140, which is the 70-200, probably the sweetest lens everybody makes. I never use a tripod because you have to wander around. You got to be very quick. You got to be very aware. The big thing with event photography is it's tell a story, tell a story, tell a story. So I'm going to go through these slides, and you can see that I'm just trying to capture an event. If somebody's never been to this, by the end of this presentation, you should really know what this festival is all about. So obviously, the Scottish festivals are all about pipe and drums, and I love music, all kinds of music. Learn to actually really, really appreciate bagpipes, which a lot of people have a hard time understanding, but it's a fascinating instrument. I really like to capture emotional shots. You can see these people are obviously, you know, enthused to be there, you know, took the time to dress in their outfits and they're really getting ready for it. This is just one of the pipe bands. They have pipe bands. They fly in from all over the world for this festival, believe it or not. It's in a little town. You know, it's probably not even as big as Green Valley, believe it or not. And they have this huge Scottish festival. So you can't be afraid to just, you know, you don't have to take the typical portrait photo. Just try and capture the moment. You know, people might not even bother even looking at this guy's shoes and socks, but I think it's an interesting thing. There's always characters, right? So this is one of the guys in one of the big pipe and drum bands, and just an interesting character. This is some of the regalia that they, every one of these things means something different in their clans. And you can see one of the challenges with event photography is you can't control the conditions. I had 3 days of hot, sunny, and most people were saying, "Oh, it's a great day for photography. It's really sunny out." And I said, "No, I want the clouds to come in." But then you get stuff like this, right? You just got to make the best of it. You're going to get a lot of shadows, and a lot of this show is at night as well, which presents its own challenges. I'll show you that in a minute. You know, a little bit of an interesting thing. There's obviously a Scottish gentleman lifting the line so his lady can get under the fence there. That's a real dagger. That's a real knife there. I was just standing right behind the guy, actually, but that's just a traditional thing that they do in Scotland. The piper's getting ready. Another band from Guelph, Ontario. But you can see, like, established in 1922, so the heritage is really strong. Don't be afraid to use different angles. You can see I'm literally, I think I'm on my stomach here filming these people. They almost ran over me, but they did scatter around me, which was great. The big thing I can tell you about event photography is make sure you do some homework before you go there. Do a lot of scouting. Scout where the best venues are, scout where the people are going to be coming out. scout what you can do, what you can't do. Make sure you get a schedule, because on the second day and third day, there's probably 20, 30 things going on at once at this particular festival. There's the sporting events, there's the music, there's the dancing events, there's lots of different things. So you've got to decide what you're going to cover. And because I was covering the event for the festival, I had to make sure I had a little bit of an overview of everything. And you can see here, obviously they saw I was taking the pictures. I was with there was two young guys that were filming everything, which I don't do any video. I've got to get into it for sure. But you can see that they're very, very aware that you're there, and they love getting their picture taken. Don't be afraid to use different angles. It's not always that stand up and take a straight shot. Get down on the ground, get high up. It's a pretty famous band called Albanic. They're unbelievably entertaining. They had a new rock twist on Scottish music. I got to know this band pretty well while I was there. A lot of characters. This is just starting some of the sporting events. And you can see how harsh the sunlight was, right? It was really, really tough. It was very hard to get a good clean shot because of the conditions, but that's what you get when you're doing an event. And I can tell you that from very personal experience that true Scottish people do not wear anything under their kilts. These guys do, just because they're in the sporting event. And there's all ages, and everybody is participating. Doesn't matter if you're young or old. This is the heavy pole throw. And this is it's an interesting sport. It's difficult to get ready. Here again, the bagpipes. The dancers. The other thing that you need to capture at an event is always capture what's going on in the crowd. Sometimes some of the best shots I get is in the crowd, just because of some of the reactions. You can get a lot of candid shots. I took over 7,000 images in 3 days, and I didn't eliminate too many. Don't be afraid to get in tight as well, as you can see those last two shots. Get harsh lighting, right? This was when it was starting to get a little bit dark, and they had the stage lighting, and it's a little bit challenging. This is Ashley Mcisa. He's a very famous Canadian fiddler, a pretty radical guy. This concert was at night, so the lights were always changing. That's him there. I just thought it was better in black and white. This is a lady judge judging the dancing competition. She came right from Glasgow. And of course, she had that sweet accent where you couldn't really understand her, but I'm pretty good at picking up accents. Of course, I have a love of sports, and so the sporting events are nothing like you've ever seen, because you don't get this everywhere. This is like a heavy stone throw. And all these guys are characters. They're all big boys. They have a piping competition where you have to go up and down the field, and you have to play a song, and you're judged on how you walk, and then obviously the music that you're playing. How you march, sorry, not walk, march. And here's one of these things. These are the people in the crowd, right? Interesting. People just enjoying the day. Jousting, they have a little bit of a jousting couch. Like, there's lots going on at these festivals. A lot of characters. They're all in like garb from the old days. And this guy was actually a flag maker. So he's hand doing a flag for a family. And this young man's got a pretty serious look on his face. I never found out why, but and this guy, I got to know this guy pretty good. If I ever get in a fight, he's going to be in front of me. So that's it for the Highland Games one. I do have another presentation. I'll zip through a little quicker. I had press credentials for one of the largest powwows in North America, which is in Quebec. And I was able to get credentials for that. And that's not the one I'm looking for. So in that powwow, we were, like I said, able to get credentials. And how I get credentials is I really just, the way to get credentials is to really pad your resume with a lot of events. I've been very fortunate that I get a lot of credentials for sporting events. It's being more and more difficult to get credentials just because everybody wants to get credentials, and organizers really want pro photographers there. So when I do sports, when I was doing the University of Buffalo, so University of Buffalo women's and men's basketball, I got to know the athletic director, and they'll be your best friend. And I just was very polite, and I was a nice guy. I got to know him and asked if I could shoot the sports, and I got a pass for the whole season. I was supposed to shoot football and track, and then COVID shut the borders down. So I haven't been back to the University of Buffalo. I'm hoping to do something with University of Arizona while I'm here in the winter. So they're all NCAA accredited. Both of the men's and women's teams have made it to the big tournament in basketball. And I literally sit beside somebody from Getty, somebody from Sports Illustrated, AP, all the major media events, photographers. And the biggest thing you got to do is respect their time, because they're there making a living. I'm there just for fun. So I've got quite a few slides here. I'm just going to zip through them really quickly because I want some time for questions at the end. So let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow, please. So this lady was the sort of poster child of the event. Like I said, I'll just zip these very quickly. The first day is just an orientation of what this powwow is really all about. So Wendake was one of those, we have a lot of native culture around here in Arizona. Wendake is the neatest, cleanest native reserve I've ever been on, and I've been on a lot of them because they understood enterprise. So they're very enterprising. They have a beautiful hotel here. They have very strict rules for people that live in Wendake, and they understand enterprise. And they're not like some of the native reserves are pretty sloppy, as we all know. But they've really embraced it. So in the opening ceremonies of this, there's several dances, and they all mean something different. I took a lot of photos here too, but way too many to go through them all. There's my good friend Gerald that I went to Cuba with, and he was here with the powwow, and we actually got interviewed on CBC News, both of us. So here again, the thing is just capture the event, try and get a little bit of what's going on. Obviously they're skinning, I forget what animal this was, but we actually had a little taste of it. If you knew what it was, you probably wouldn't taste it. But just show the flavor of what's going on. This is the beginning where they burn sage, doing a march at the beginning. The thing with these native powwows, there's so much color. I love color, obviously being a photographer, but one of my favorite things in photography is black and white, but I love color. And that's why this powwow was just a thrill. Of course, they were very happy with what they got. Here again, people, you get to meet people, and a lot of people in this particular powwow spoke French only. But there's people from all over. I met people from North Dakota, from some people from Arizona, New York State, all over Canada. Here again, just don't be afraid to use different angles. Don't always have to just focus on sort of that portrait. Kids are a big one. I'm a real sucker for kids. And these are several events. So this powwow goes on for 3 days, and there's different events. They mean different things. Some are very spiritual. And this is just trying to capture the moment.
I know, my guy. Hi, Zach. How you doing? Zach? Oh, shit.
So drums are very sacred in the culture. And there's a whole story around why men play the drums and women don't. And they're chanting, they're very, very serious about it. But here again, like I said, just with event photography, just make sure you just capture the flavor. The Canadian natives were a big part of the military for lots of different things. They're well represented here. Don't be afraid to get in tight, use different angles. If there's any questions while I'm going through here, just jump in, because I'd be happy to answer any questions. I used a variety of lenses here. One of the biggest challenges with event photography is the backgrounds. And you can see one of the things we had a lady photographer that was working the event as well. Of course, she was wearing bright red, and she was in probably 500 of my photos, because she always went to the other side where nobody was, and every photographer had her in the pictures. There's not too much you can do about that, but just have a little chat with them and just ask them if they could be a little bit more courteous, and because everybody's trying to do their work here. You can see lots of movement, lots of color, lots of tradition. All of these outfits are all hand done. I use several different lenses, everything from wide angle to a big 300 millimeter lens I had for some of these. You can see family's a big part of the powwow. Like that's probably the youngest one there. That one definitely touched my heart, and you can see what she's got on there. Support our troops. They do have a competition for the kids, and of course every kid won money. And even that little one, you can see she's going to grab that $5 bill she just won for her dance. And it's pretty serious. They're really into it. It's not just a game for them. They understand the culture. They're brought up that way. There's my favorite little guy of the whole trip. Don't be afraid to use movement, panning, different things, because there's lots of ways to just change up your photography. And ordinarily when I'm doing event photography, I would switch some of these to black and white, but because with the powwow it's so colorful, I wouldn't really do it justice in black and white. I don't think I took any black and did any black and white in any of these because it wouldn't do it justice because the color is so awesome. And that's it. Any questions with any of that?
Andy, do you have a go-to lens that you use, or are you switching lens quite a bit during your events, or do you have one your favorite?
Well, I always carry two cameras. Actually, I carry three cameras. So I've got that XT3 and an XT4. And then I do have a little Panasonic Lumix that I use with a big, it's 1,000mm zoom on it. But my go-to, if I can get in, if I have credentials that I can get in tight, I really use that 18-135 because it's a, it's pretty decent wide angle lens and I could get in pretty tight. But a lot of times with these things like the powwow, there's certain things when there were a lot of people on the field, I had to use the big zoom because I couldn't get right on the field. So it depends on what you're doing, right? If I'm doing an event where I could really get close, then I like that 18-135. And I also use a power booster too. Like a lot of these, you have to shoot several frames a minute, especially with sports. I do a rodeo every year. That's always fast moving, and everything I do sports wise, I have to shoot like a lot of frames.
Does anybody have any questions? You need to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Do you do a lot of post editing when you're working on your photos?
That's the least favorite use of my time. But you do have to do some. You have to do, I try and do as little as possible. A lot of those in the powwow, a lot of those, what I did is post-crop vignetting in Lightroom. But other than that, I don't do too much color enhancement. I don't mess around. I don't use Photoshop. But you do have to do some post-processing. It's your work out there, right? So you got to make it look as nice as possible. When you're taking 5,000 plus shots, it's very, very time consuming, and it's hard because I get emotionally attached to the work, right? As I think we all do.
And where do you store all of these pictures that you take?
I use Lightroom. And I have 3 hard drives, external hard drives, and then I store those in the cloud as well as backup. But I find Lightroom is a pretty good organizer. That's why I go to it.
I want to extend you a welcome on Monday mornings at 10 o'clock over at the club when the multimedia SIG meets. They'd enjoy having you, and you'd enjoy meeting with them. Give it a shot when you get some time.
Great, I will. What's going to get in my way is going to be golf, but I always got time for photography. I saw the most beautiful sunrise. I got welcomed to a beautiful sunrise the other day. It was just amazing. So thank you for that. I will attend some of those.
Andy, do you do anything with your photos commercially?
I've been fortunate. I've sold a number of my photos. I did 2 gallery showings back in my hometown. But they're very finicky, as everybody knows, right? I was just fortunate that it was crazy how people find you, right? Just, I'm pretty active on social media, and right out of the blue, somebody says, I do the photography, believe it or not, that I sold the most of. They do an indie event in Toronto. I've been able to photograph that for probably 8 or 9 years. And I've sold a fair amount of my indie photos, believe it or not, right? Because somebody saw it on social media and they said, hey, could I have a shot of that? I really like this driver. And, you know, living in Niagara Falls, you'd think a lot of people would want our Niagara Falls photos, but every photographer I know does Niagara Falls, right? So, but I have sold some of it. I'm not actively trying to sell my photography. It's a big thrill when somebody puts your work on their wall. But yeah, I have had some success. I see there's a lot of talented photographers in this club. I've seen a lot of the work, and it's amazing work, and they just take great pride in the work that they do.
A lot of their work, Andy, is displayed in the centers around Green Valley, the different, you know, the West Center and the East Center and so forth. So we have a person, a volunteer, who arranges to get our pictures up and displayed in the facilities around Green Valley. So you might be interested in that, as well as we have a Facebook account in which pictures of the day are posted, and they are looking for more photos to display on Facebook from camera club members. So I'm sure they'll welcome some photos from you as well. You got some great shots there.
Yeah, I got that email from her, and I sent her an email because I just want to know more information on how to get the photos to her. And I did. The very first GVR I went to was, I think it was Desert Hills, and they had quite a bit of photography at that one, on the walls, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. They're posted up. I think they're up there for a month, I believe.
Okay.
Rotate them around, so a lot of opportunities. You got some great shots. Anybody else have any other questions of Andy? Andy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you for becoming a member of the club. And I'll see you on the golf course sometime.
Awesome, for sure. And I really look forward to getting into some of the outings. I was trying to find time to go to Bisbee with everybody. I don't know if that trip is still on, but I'm not going to be able to go.
Oh,
but I definitely love the events because I really want to know the area, and I want to obviously network with all the fine folks in the club. It's quite a big club. I was surprised that you have over 500 members. It's amazing.
yes, and we are down in membership. We were, I think at one time, 700 and something, but COVID has kind of not been good to us.
Yes.
But I think people will come back. People will come back as they're able to, when they're able to do so.
I think so. We're all starved for being social now again, right? And I just look forward to networking with people, and hopefully I find some people that like to do the same kind of photography as I do.
Great. I'll let you go, Andy, if there are no other questions. Thank you, members, for joining us today. Appreciate that. And Andy, thank you for taking the time to teach us a little bit about your photography.
Thank you. Great to meet everybody, and hope to see you all soon.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you.